What's happening, gang? It's your boy Retro, back again with another reaction video. Yeah. If you are American or interested in what's going on in America, you will not want to miss this. Got a very interesting clip, very eerie clip to say the least, about something that's been going on in DC for quite some time now. The government's being exposed for, what they've been doing. They've been doing some very strange things to the population in efforts to create these conflicts that don't involve them. I'm excited to get into this and see what's going on, what the government has been doing to the people. So we're going to jump straight into the clip, guys, and I'll give my thoughts on the back end, guys. So definitely stick around to the end so you guys get my thoughts on the back end. But let's get straight into it, y'all. Before we do that, though, make sure you guys smash that like button, guys. It does not cost a thing. Hit that like button for your boy, and also hit that subscribe button as we're on the road to the truth. Hop aboard for the journey. Let's get into it, y'all.
You gotta love clips that make you think. It's the beauty of the internet, folks, the information age. You could be randomly perusing the internet on a Tuesday, not thinking anything, and have an Alex Jones clip pop up that changes your perspective forever. You could go from an unassuming normie who never questioned anything to a full-blown information addict in a matter of a couple minutes. It's a beautiful thing. Don't you love it when you're scrolling through social media and a video pops up that really makes you think? Well, right now, that's exactly what's happening on Twitter, as a clip featuring comedian Dave Smith is now going viral, discussing the roots or the origins of the culture wars as we know it. Well, he's got a theory, and it's what everyone's talking about on Twitter, so let's join the conversation. We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. All right, folks, so here's the clip that's going viral. Dave Smith on why the culture war was socially engineered.
There are these nexus charts where you can map out words in major publications. I'm not talking about mom and pop news outlets. I'm talking about the New York Times, the Washington Post, like the big dogs. Go track how many times the word racism was mentioned. And around 2012, it shoots up.
Yep.
Social justice shoots up. Transgenderism shoots up. White privilege shoots up. This was forced on the American people. Why are we having these conversations now? No, the people did not wake up one day and decide, we want to have a national conversation about chicks with dicks. That didn't happen. This wasn't an organic movement. It was all of the most powerful people decided this is what we're going to talk about. And why was that? Because it's the perfect, look, when you're failing on policy, you pivot to a culture war.
Yep.
You pit people against each other, so they're fighting each other.
Yep.
We had in this country, we had an Occupy Wall Street movement where leftists were standing outside of big banks screaming, we are the 99%. Right-wingers had a populist movement called the Tea Party, where they were outraged about the bailouts of big banks, unsustainable debt, government spending. They don't like that. That's not what the powers that be like. You're getting too close. Look, they like you fighting about issues like abortion. Now, I'm not saying abortion isn't a very important issue. It's a very important issue. But us fighting about that issue doesn't scare anyone at the Federal Reserve. It doesn't scare anyone in the CIA. They don't care if you fight about that issue. They love you fighting over transgender bathrooms.
Yep.
They have and you can see this every day. They're stoking this culture war because they have to distract from the fact that they completely failed on everything else.
Now, some people are very quick to dismiss this kind of theory, especially when it makes such a grand claim and even points at a specific date of 2012. But Dave Smith might actually be onto something here. And for me, it feels a little bit personal because 2012 is essentially right when I was entering my 20s. And so during some of my most important developmental stages, during that exact time period, I experienced it in real time. Pre-2012 and post-2012, I guess we could call it. Pre-Clown World and post-Clown World. I grew up in a very normal feeling time. And then literally the moment I was done school, or I guess the moment I dropped out of school and I was looking behind me, it's almost as if I was the Joker from that infamous scene with the exploding, burning hospital behind me. I'm not implying that I'm the one that left it in that state, but it certainly seems as though something happened within the academic and entertainment world the moment I was done school, the moment it was time to become, a serious adult participating in society. It seemed as though this serious world that I was growing up in became increasingly more clownish through the years. And what's interesting about this phenomenon is that it's actually documented. What Dave Smith was referring to was this set of data which we've actually spoken about before. Here's number of news articles mentioning systemic racism from the 1980s to basically the 2012 period and beyond. Look at that insane spike. Here's number of news articles mentioning white privilege. The same exact spike right after 2012. Number of news articles mentioning diversity and inclusion. Same thing. Number of news articles mentioning unconscious bias. You know, all the left's favorite gaslighting pseudo-academic terms. Spiking through the roof right after the 2012 period. Essentially what Dave Smith is implying is that there's no way this kind of a massive spike is coming from an organic cultural sort of revolution or shift. These aren't organic trends. It had to have been planned. And I see where he's coming from just because the numbers themselves seem so ridiculous. You know, the spikes, the parabolic trend within such a short period of time, such a monumental spike, just like we've seen with the increase in identifying as LGBTQ or other genders within the Gen Z demographic. Some figures suggesting over 20% of Gen Zers are identifying as LGBTQ, up from the 4 to 5% in the 60s to 70s, 80s, and 90s. A slight spike with millennials, which in a way did feel organic. That's my generation. We grew up in a culture where really grievance wasn't being manipulated. It felt as though we were kind of past the times of discrimination and racism, moving towards a more tolerant and accepting society, and so for the most part, it just wasn't really a big deal, so you'd expect more people to identify as LGBTQ. But then fast forward the next generation, I mean, the spike just feels inorganic. It feels as though it has to be media-driven or social media-driven. Some people have theories suggesting that it's a Chinese psyop or a Russian cultural infiltration dating back to the Cold War, the whole Yuri Bezmenov demoralization theory.
Ideological subversion is the slow process which we call either ideological subversion or active measures, активные мероприятия in the language of the KGB, or psychological warfare. What it basically means is to change the perception of reality of every American to such an extent that despite of the abundance of information, no one is able to come to sensible conclusions in the interests of defending themselves, their families, their community, and their country. It's a great brainwashing process which goes very slow, and it's divided in 4 basic stages. The first one being demoralization. It takes from 15 to 20 years to demoralize a nation. Why that many years? Because this is the minimum number of years which requires to educate one generation of students in the country of your enemy, exposed to the ideology of the enemy. The next stage is destabilization. This time, subverter does not care about your ideas and the patterns of your consumption. Whether you eat junk food and get fat and flabby, doesn't matter anymore. This time, and it takes only from 2 to 5 years to destabilize a nation, what matters is essentials: economy, foreign relations, defense systems. The next stage, of course, is crisis. It may take only up to 6 weeks to bring a country to the verge of crisis. You can see it in Central America now. And after crisis, with a violent change of power, structure, and economy, you have so-called the period of normalization. It may last indefinitely. Normalization is a cynical expression borrowed from Soviet propaganda. When the Soviet tanks moved into Czechoslovakia in '68, Comrade Brezhnev said, "Now the situation in brotherly Czechoslovakia is normalized." This is what will happen in the United States if you allow all these schmucks to bring the country to crisis, to promise people all kind of goodies and the paradise on earth, to destabilize your economy, to eliminate the principle of free market competition, and to put a big brother government in Washington, D.C., with benevolent dictators like Walter Mondale, who will promise lots of things, never mind whether the promises are fulfillable or not.
All potentially valid theories. And then there's a more domestic theory, I guess we could call it, built on the shoulders of knowledge around topics relating to Operation Mockingbird, which was an alleged large-scale program of the United States Central Intelligence Agency, the CIA, that began in the early years of the Cold War and attempted to manipulate domestic American news media organizations for propaganda purposes. Whether it's remnants of Operation Mockingbird or the 2012 2012 Smith-Mundt Modernization Act, which once again allowed the federal government to start creating propaganda for American content produced for audiences abroad. Who's to say that it doesn't all have a connection even domestically? You know, it seems like all the global superpowers of the time back in the 70s and 80s and 90s were in some sort of intelligence-driven, tech-driven psyop arms race. The implication from people who wish to question nothing is that relics of that culture, I guess, just cease to exist as we enter the digital age. I feel as though that might be a little bit naive. I have a hard time buying into any kind of dismissive narrative, especially when we see the kind of data that we have access to, the kind of cultural change that we have seen happen in such a short period of time, the political meddling and political influence schemes, the lies surrounding unfortunate police encounters between white police officers and black suspects like George Floyd and Jacob Blake, the whipping up the nation into a national frenzy, the constant never-ending power stacking that we see from the bureaucratic elite as the masses are distracted with the latest psyop. You know, there's got to be something to it, because it all just doesn't sit right. You know, that's the main issue. It doesn't feel organic. And generally, I feel like human beings have a pretty good knack, a pretty good skill at being able to feel when something feels unhuman. I can tell you for certain this cultural Marxist revolution is certainly unhuman. I can feel it in my gut, and that's about all I need. A great moment from comedian Dave Smith on Patrick Bet-David's podcast, and a little bit from me, which hopefully you enjoyed.
Yo, there we have it, guys. Coming from the liberal hive mind. Definitely going to be sure to leave that original video link down in the description box below for those of you who want to go over there and check that out. And also for you guys to go over there and show hive mind some love. That was very insightful. We cannot dismiss these claims coming from Dave Smith. I mean, these are, you know, spot on what's going on. What we've seen happen. You see the spike in the left's pseudo-academic terms searched up on the web history. In 2012, this is no coincidence. It seems like there's been some, you know, some tampering with the government is trying to push us in another direction away from where, you know, I feel like people are right in their face, right in their grill. You know, trying to figure out why government spending is at an all-time high. What's going on with government spending? Why do we keep, you know, bailing out these banks? The government just doesn't like when the population, the people are that close to their business. The government essentially pushed us off and tried to, you know, create some other business somewhere else for us to go and focus our attention and our efforts towards. And it only took so long. We've seen that ex-KGB member, you know, breaking it down, how long it takes to, you know, essentially brainwash the whole entire population. It sounds like we're not too far from that. You know, that theory he had, either that course, you know, first starting off with the demoralization of the nation, the destabilization of the nation, and then a crisis. I've seen a couple of crises hit, and we're getting crises. You know, it's hard to, you know, pinpoint which one exactly would have been the one, but we're seeing crisis. I mean, whether that be with what is it, COVID-19, these social justice issues that arise from day to day. I'm not sure which one it is, but we've definitely seen some crises within our nation. And then, you know, followed up by the normalization. And I definitely feel like a lot of people were wanting to go back to some type of normalcy after, you know, we were hit with COVID. So I'm not sure if that's the one, you know, but that definitely seems like the big crisis that I would put my finger on and say that right there is where, you know, they want to move us to, you know, their normalization and kind of knock the people down a peg. I feel like we were climbing up, you know, the chain of command too quick, demanding questions that they really couldn't give the public answers to. And that is why we've been diverted into these, you know, artificial culture wars. That was truly an iconic moment from Dave. So I can see why this clip is breaking the internet. This clip has broke Twitter. Because he has broke down kind of an eye-opening point. This perspective that Dave's taken on these culture wars, saying that, you know, this is all man-made, this is artificial. Big Brother definitely has some type of say, some type of play in what's been going on. We see this just random spike. You can see it was almost no search, and then out of nowhere, 2012, it just shot up like it shot out of a cannon. The only logical explanation that I can think of is they're trying to cause this conflict, and they want to see, you know, us, you know, pitted against each other, you know, more liable to do something, harm one of another. And that also leads to, you know, depopulation efforts. Yo, this was very eye-opening to say the least. You guys gotta hop in the comment section and let me know your thoughts. Are you getting on board with Dave Smith's theory? And then if not that, how about, you know, the ex-Russian KGB theory of, you know, the 4 stages of how to brainwash a population? Definitely hop in the comment section, guys, and let me know your thoughts. Also, make sure you guys hit that like button, guys. It does not cost a thing. Hit that like button for your boy. And also hit that subscribe button, guys. We're on the road to the truth. Hop aboard for the journey. I'll catch you guys on the next one. We got